Do a little clap here. All right, welcome back, guys. Jiu Jitsu Motivation Podcast. I'm Greg Melita, black belt, owner of Hampton's Jiu Jitsu.
And I'm Brian DeLuca, black belt and author of Jiu Jitsu for Small People and other weird shit I think about.
So, guys, today we have an awesome guest, and me and him go way back. And he was one of the big inspirations for me to start Jiu Jitsu Motivation a bunch of years ago. And so, the man himself, Cobra, as he is known, Josef Manuel. How we doing?
We're doing good, man. I was talking to Mario the other day. And I was telling him, I said, man. He was like, you know, Greg, oh, yeah, man, we go back. I said, I remember watching him killing it, man, at the Pride Championships. I mean, just killing it. I said, that guy was a savage, man.
Good times. that was like going way back, man. You know, that's really cool. Yeah, we have Professor Mario. He teaches a bunch of classes for us at Hampton Jiu Jitsu. We love him out there. You know, that's one of the things we want to have guys from different lineages out there too. But yeah, we go way back. You know, killing it yourself, man. I don't know, man. Don't speak lightly about that. Cobra is a big name from back in the day too. You know.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun back in the day. Local tournaments, a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. So
one day we should all take like all our local tournament medals and like bring them out and show them.
So yeah, actually go into that. Let's first go into like your jiu-jitsu history, and then I want to go into the whole media and Chokelab history. So where'd you start? Around what year? All of that stuff.
So I started with Mario Lemos. It was I officially started training in August of 2001. So there was like I used to work in a barbershop. I was a cosmetologist by trade. And right across the street, there was a capoeira school, and he was subleasing from there. So I met him at my mom's restaurant. He was there getting something to eat. I went there for some ribs and rice. And once I connected with him, he gave me my first formal jiu-jitsu lesson in his house. He had a mat. And he taught me. I remember exactly what he taught me. And he taught me like a hip over from the closed guard kimura and a guillotine. He showed me like a little hip escape, things like that. So yeah, it was good times, man. Training with Mario there. It wasn't too long because he was just there for a short period of time. But I'd say anywhere between 6 to 8 months I was training with him, and I took full advantage of the opportunity to learn from him because he had such an extensive background and many years training with Elio and Hickson and Hoyler and Horion and all those guys. He was a big part of that movement of jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu growth in U.S. and California. So it was a great opportunity for me because he's a wealth of knowledge and had such strong fundamentals. And those are the fundamentals that I carry with me to this day, yeah, so that's how I started, when I started, who I started training with. And it was great inspiration. He was a phenomenal, and still is a phenomenal instructor, a very well-versed, knowledgeable. And he also put me onto the competition aspect of jiu-jitsu because one day when I went to class, he had a T-shirt on that said 1999 World Championships, and it had Saulo Ribeiro on the back as the most technical fighter. And so that triggered me to go do research. And I really didn't know much about competition, but when I saw Saulo and his jiu-jitsu, and then I started seeing all these other phenomenal grapplers at the time that were on the circuit, the world circuit, in particular in Brazil, Brasileiro de Equipes and stuff like that. That's when my paradigm completely shifted. That's what inspired me, instilled in me the idea to like, man, I want to get out there and compete too.
Right. So what was it that made you go from, we were talking about local tournaments, right? We all start at these local tournaments and then we sort of graduate to go into these bigger tournaments in the world. What made you sort of go, okay, I want to compete in the worlds. I want to bring it a little bit further in my competition.
So I'm naturally a very competitive person and very driven person. And it was an old friend, may he rest in peace, Mike McCulloch, who was the one that pushed me to do that. Because I would go train, and just for no reason at all, just because of the fact that I liked it and I was very competitive off the mat. I was training really hard. I was training like 7 days a week, 2 or 3 times a day. I wasn't competing. I was just training. Mm-hmm. And he asked me, he said, Joe, why are you training so hard? Like, I was like, I don't know. And he's like, you ever think about competing? I was like, nah. I said, you think I'll do good? He was like, I know you will. And I was like, sure? He's like, bro, you should jump in. And so it was Mike who saw the fervor that I had, the enthusiasm that I had, the drive. I was coming in. I wanted to be king of the mat at the academy. When we did Shark Tank King of the Mat, I always tried to win. When we were sparring, I always tried to be on top, winning. And he was like, "You need to take that energy." And I think the term he said, he's like, "You can't contain yourself within these four walls." And I understood what he meant by that. So I had to start to organize myself, my thoughts, and my intentions to go out there and be as successful as possible on the competition scene. So the local event, that was locally. And then it was Mike also who in 2004, he said, "Joe, we're heading to the Worlds, man. Why don't you come with us?" And I was like, "Bro, I'm not ready for that." And he's like, "You're ready for that." He's like, "No, I don't know anyone else that trains as hard as you do." He's like, "I'm serious, dude." He's like, "Let's go." And so he was the one that invited me. I went to the Tijuca Tennis Club in Rio de Janeiro, 2004. And it was a phenomenal experience, to be able to get out there, see the place. I had watched those matches so many times, that green mat and the Tijuca Tennis Club sign on the back wall.
Sport TV.
Sport TV, right? And it was, I think I was more excited to be there. When I got in the ring, I kind of circled around, kind of sort of like the way Leandro Lo does. And I just swiped the mat like this with my hands. And I was like, damn, I can't believe I'm here, bro. I don't think I even cared about the result of the match. I was just so happy to be there.
Right, to be there. Competing.
Yeah, so that was the reason why, and that was the person that inspired me, one, to compete, and then two, to take it to that level.
That's great. And then, so you, knowing that and knowing that you had that drive for competition and all of that, how did that lead you to Hobson Moore and that whole team? Because that's a very, high level competition team right there.
Exactly, because as the saying goes, if you want to be a champion, you got to train with a champion. Now, that's not to say that the people I was training with were no good. They were just. I was training with in Jersey. I was training with David Adif, who was a black belt under Hoyler, and so I had contact with Hoyler via David. I was fortunate to be able to do a lot of private lessons with him and things like that, and that was all geared to gaining the knowledge and being around someone who had that world level experience, right? But when I saw that T-shirt that Mario had, and I went online and started doing research, I came across Horion's website, and he was selling this tape set of the 98, 99, 2000, 2001 World Championships. Right? I'm sorry, it was 90, 99, 2000, 2001. When I purchased that, the first one that I saw, I went backwards from 2001 to the 1999. The first one I saw when I popped the tape in was Omar Salem, who I have the possibility of facing in 2 weeks, which is crazy. This guy was the title holder of the Roosterweight division. He was the reigning king until Bruno Malfacine surpassed his titles. And I remember watching his match, a beautiful match where he pulls guard, elevator sweep to the mount, finish, perfect match. And then the second match was Robson's, where he went against his kid, Vinicius. And Robson pulls guard. He does this beautiful butterfly guard sweep, comes to the top. The kid goes to deep half guard, and Robson rocks him with a knee bar from that. I watched the rest of the matches. Those are the two that that left the most impact on me. But the Robson's was like in less than 2 minutes or something like that. And so, although Omar Salem's match was really nice, it was kind of carried out to about to the 8-minute mark. And Robson's was just there's such an impact on him. I was like, damn, this guy says, you could just tell by his physiology that when you look at the crowd and you see the crowd just erupt at his victory, I was like, damn, this guy is like, man, who is this guy? And I just kind of, in my mind, thought to myself, I wonder what that guy could do with me, man. He could fix me up, man, fix my game, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. And so that seed was planted in my mind when I saw the tapes. So then I went through that process of training with Mario, and then I was training with David, and I was around a little bit for a little while. I didn't have anyone to train with. I was searching, and I went to Hensley's in New York for about 5 or 6 months. That didn't work out. And now here we are in 2004. When we went to the Worlds, I tried to go check and see if Robson was still in Rio, and they told me that he had moved to Sao Paulo. And I was like, damn it, I missed the opportunity to see him. But that was July of 2004. When I came back to the States, I was so inspired from the Worlds. I came back so inspired from watching Jacare and Bibiana Fernandez and Marcelo Garcia. I enrolled at the I registered rather for the Battle at the Beach, the Naga at the Wildwood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took a team of guys down there with me. It's probably about 20 to 30 of us. And lo and behold, standing right in the center of the gymnasium was Robson Moore. I couldn't believe it, bro. It was meant to be. And so I took the opportunity to approach him, introduce myself to him. And initially, I didn't try to solicit him in any way to train or teach me. I was making a collection of his matches, like videos that I had of his matches. And so I was so naive and so to speak, innocent, that I was like, hey, man, there was this match that you had. I read about it on Gracie Magazine, but I can't seem to find it. Like, do you have that match? And he's probably looking at me like, what the hell, this guy? He's like, yeah, I got to go to Brazil. When I go to Brazil, I'll go check for it, But it was really innocent. I meant no harm. I just really wanted to see the match. I was collecting his stuff. And yeah, I went back to go. I had the custom of dealing with my adrenaline. I would go take a nap, so I wouldn't be watching matches or walking back and forth. And so I was kind of laying there, and I was just like, at the moment, I didn't have an instructor. I did have my school, I just didn't have an instructor. And I was laying there, and it just hit me. I was like, dude, well, you thought about it that time you saw his match. What would a guy like that do with you? He could form you into a really great champion. I was like, I got nothing to lose. I got up, ran. I caught him just before he left the arena, or rather the convention center, because that was a huge convention center, right? As he was walking out, I said, man, this probably sounds really crazy, but man, I'm purple belt. I have this team with me, a bunch of guys. I have a school. I don't have a professor. I'm looking for an instructor. And he didn't accept right away. He just kind of told me, let's see what happens in the future. I'm going to go to Brazil. At that time, he was competing in Judo. He was like the #1 ranked bantamweight. And he had all these things going on. And, I just popped up out of nowhere. And he was like, he had some business that he was doing over here. He said, when I come back, maybe we could sit down and talk. And so weeks passed by, and I kept calling there was a lady that was translating for him. I kept calling her, Cecilia. Like, did he come back yet? Did he come back? And she's like, no. And then finally, when he came back, we scheduled a meeting to sit down and talk.
That's great, man. That's amazing. And I got to ask you two things about that. First thing would be, first thing is that pre-fight ritual that you have of napping and sleeping. I was at the Pans. I think it was the Pans of the Worlds, and that was when Marcelo was like heavy competing. And I just remember every one of his matches. Like I would see Marcelo, and his division's about to go, and he's literally sleeping in between in the bleachers. And they call his name Marcelo Garcia, and he would just wake up and boom and fight. I was like, hold that's amazing. You're not thinking, you're not, getting the butterflies. You're just sleeping, and then they call your name, boom, you just go and fight. So
he's conserving his energy, man, letting his brain empty out and clear out.
That's really cool that you do that too. Now, the other thing was, obviously, and you're talking back in the day through this. And back in the day, it was, how did you navigate through and dealing with the fact that of changing schools? And because back then, you considered it crianche and this and that, and how did you handle all that, and how was it, that experience jumping from school to school? Was it tough to deal with, or easy, or what?
Well, when I trained with Mario, he was back then in Jersey. Well, in the tri-state area, you had what was called RGDA. It was before Hoyler took on and made his association Gracie Maita, right? And under RGDA, those schools that I went to, they were all under RGDA. So Mario, so to speak, was under Hoyler, so he was under RGDA. Then I did some volunteer work for a gentleman named Johnny Guerrero in Newark, Jersey. He went out to Iraq in 2003, and he didn't have anyone to run his school. So he actually approached me and asked me, which I was honored by that, if I was interested in helping him run school while he was away in Iraq. So I thought about it. I talked to my significant other, and then I made the decision to jump in and help him. But I was still under RGDA. Once he came back, because I was already competing and seeking a higher level of jiu-jitsu knowledge, not that he couldn't help me, but not with that, he couldn't help me. I told him, listen, Jay, I'm going to keep training with David. So I used to go to David's every Wednesday. I'll drive up to Baskin Ridge from like the Harrison, New Jersey area. And so I was still under RGDA. I only made the switch one time to a different team when it came to Robson. Now, when I did the Henzo thing, I was there for a few months, but I didn't enroll. We were in the process of talking about that. It was a pretty awesome experience when I went there talking to Henzo, and I mentioned to him that I was looking for a place to train, and he asked me who gave you the pro belt. I told him David. He goes, "Oh man, David's a good friend of mine," and he's like, "But I need you to come by. We got to test you." I was like, "Oh, this is cool." So I showed up one morning, and it was like Henzo, Roger Gracie, Hollis Gracie, Igor Gracie, and he's like, "All right, just call the guy up, Heitor. Yeah, Heitor, let's go. Let's take this guy through it, starting him out." And this is a testament to the training that I did with Mario. Mario was a phenomenal instructor. He would always start us in negative positions to work our way out of that so we could have optimal self-defense, optimal defense. And I probably got one of the greatest compliments I could have gotten when Roger looked at Renzo and said, in Portuguese, "Pô, parece que o cara treinou com Gracie. It looks like this guy trained with the Gracies." But he didn't know that I trained with Mario, who was like right there with them. So that was an awesome experience. But I never made the full transition to become a team member of the Renzo Gracie team. So there really wasn't a switching of the teams. I mean, there was some drama. I tell you, back then, there was this, just before the 2003 Pans, there was a Grappler's Quest. And there was a purple belt from Renzo's who was a prospect to win the Pans that year, Jason Yang. And we had a very heated battle in the finals of I forgot what weight class that was, light feather. And I mean, it was so, I won, and they were so pissed. Like, I couldn't walk out of the ring. Like, Renzo's guys were there, and it was almost like they wanted to jump me because they were so pissed off. You know, I didn't have any patches on. I didn't have any patches on my knee. So they're like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And then when I showed up in the basement, not too long afterwards, like, I couldn't even get anyone to drill with me. And you could hear, like, "That's the motherfucker Joseph," and they were still pissed off about that match with Jason Yang. So it was tough back then, and it was very uncomfortable too. So I didn't stay in the evening class. David Branch, I had met just before I went to Renzo's. We were both kind of looking for a place to train. I ran into him. I would see him in tournaments, and he told me, "Man, I'm going to Renzo's next week." So I said, "You know what? I'm going to go there too." Ran into him there, and then I mentioned to him, I was like, "Man, the vibe here is like, I'm not feeling it because of that match with Jason Yang."
Right.
And he was like, "Man, go to the morning class. Go to the morning class. It's a lot better there." So it was very uncomfortable. But that was the only change that I made, and it was very brief, and it didn't last long. Because of that is the reason why I didn't stay at Renzo's. I was like, "Man, I'm not feeling this at all." So, Robson was very welcoming. When we sat down and I explained to him, I came with a business mindset. Right? I came with like a plan and some pie charts about what my vision was for the business, how I was going to teach classes, when, how. I already had a vision of running a martial arts facility that was good for everyone, right? I was a competitor, and I know what it was like to be in a boiler room, and have a real strong team of guys around you that are just a bunch of killers. But I didn't want to limit my academy to just that. I wanted to be able to teach women and children. My first students were my daughters, Denaja and Eliani. So I already, from right off the bat, I already had that in my heart. I want to teach children and women. I want to be able to give them this power that will help them in hopefully never, but if they ever find themselves in a violent situation. So when I presented that to Robson, he really liked that. He's like, "Bro, this is great. Like, I've never seen anything like this." He's like, "I've been training 20 something years. I've never seen anyone present something so, but you got to put that to the side." He's like, "We talk about family first." And that was like, that was something that really left a mark on me when I was dealing with Robson initially, that he was more interested in building a friendship, getting to know me, getting to know who my family was. And that's how it's been ever since then.
Wow, no, that's great, man. I had brought that up because I know that being around for like 22 years, that back in the day, it was very difficult. It wasn't looked at as a good thing if you were going to go, train with a different group or feel like you were lacking where you were and needed to go somewhere else. Especially if you had the competition mindset. And I mean, if you have the competition mindset, evolution, times are changing, moves are changing. And if you feel like where you're training isn't giving you that, I mean, you got to feel like you have to do what you have to do. But it seems like that's what you did, and you just, you know, you had to do what you had to do to further your jiu-jitsu journey, you know?
If you ask me, brother, I would have stayed with David and them. I think they just had a totally different direction they wanted to go. And I tried to work with them. I tried to say, hey, well, this is what I want to do. You know, like I wanted to, because of my job, right? That was my career, was cosmetology. I had a family to raise. Like I had 3 children.
Right.
And they wanted me to go teach down South Jersey. I'm like, I can't go to South Jersey. I'll never make it in time for class, back from work. I have my family in Harrison. So I was trying to work with them where I was like, let me open the school in Harrison. We're going to be far away from anyone. I'm not going to try to take anyone's clients or anything like that. If anyone from the other schools want to come and train my school, they have to have express permission from their professors. Like I was trying to do it in a way where, because, you know, there's shady stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
Shady stuff happens. You have guys that, like, for example, in my association, right? Let's say Greg and I are teammates, or he's my professor, I'm his student, or vice versa. And he has a school. The way we have it set up is that if my student wants to go to your academy, 1, he has to ask me for permission. And 2, when he goes there, he has to pay a mat fee. I don't care how cool he is. I don't even care if he's a black belt. He has to pay a mat fee. Because you have those students, right, that they'll be in default with me financially. And then they'll be like, they won't tell Greg anything. It's just like, oh, what's up, Greg? Yo, what's up, man? It's my boy. It's my boy. And you don't know anything. You let him train. Then all of a sudden, he just kind of stops training at my school, and he's a full-time student in your school. And then now we have a beef, right? I come to you and I'm like, yo, Greg, what's my man training over there? Oh, you took my student, right? Problems, and then friendships are broken for this because some student is just being like a freeloader, irresponsible with his financial responsibilities, and then taking advantage of Greg's friendship. So, you know, we kind of try to avoid those things. And so that's what I was presenting to them. I said, listen, I'm going to avoid those problems. I don't want your clients. In Harrison, we have anywhere between 20 to 30,000 residents. If I had 5% of those, I couldn't fit them in a school. I don't want the Mike school. I don't want the guys from Johnny school, but they weren't having it, bro. They weren't having it. They were like, no, it's a conflict of interest if you open in Harrison. And I was like, all right, guys, well, now this is where we have to part ways, because there's no way for me to teach anywhere else. And I needed to do the school thing. Because remember, Greg, when we were competing, you know what it's like. You're an athlete, competitor. You had to be on the mat 7 days a week, 2-3 times a day to be able to get the results that you wanted. And there was no way for me to drive an hour and a half down South Jersey, to get that kind of training at the time. So if it was for me, I would have stayed with them, but they did not accept my proposal. And they were trying to, and the funny thing was that it was their idea. Like I didn't want to open a school. I just wanted to compete. But they kept saying, oh, Joe, you know, you got a great competition resume. You know, the students, they like you. The people like you. Why don't you open a school? I was like, I don't want to open a school. And they kept pressing me until I finally said, okay, I want to open a school, but I can't do it down South Jersey. And they were like, no. I think what they really wanted to do was they really wanted me far away from them.
Right.
In case I ever rise up.
Yeah, you weren't sticking to their plan. You were going on your own journey, man.
Yeah. So, but I also wanted to say, Greg, that I understand. First, let me just say that Renzo did not treat me like that. Like he was very welcoming, and he was very helpful and polite, and he took the time out of his busy day to sit there and actually test me. And I'm grateful for that, and I'll never take that for granted. And I don't want to say that it was a bad thing that the vibe on the mat, they didn't accept me, because I also respect and understand that that's a brotherhood, and brothers protect themselves from invaders, so to speak, right? We're going to protect someone coming into our house. So I kind of understand that, even though it was uncomfortable, and maybe, you know, some people nowadays are like, oh, you know, that's old school. I kind of do understand that, you know. That they were just protecting what was theirs, you know, and at the end of the day, it's a competition, right?
Yeah,
it's changed a little bit, but I'm still a little old school, man. You know, like I don't mind if guys come to my academy. You could come and train. My doors are open to everyone. But if my guy has to face you in your division, I don't want that guy training with my guy, because I really do believe in the element of surprise. That does exist. People say, oh, there are no secrets in jiu-jitsu. No, there are no secrets in jiu-jitsu, but there are strategies that I can have that you don't know of.
That's the difference, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, people are like, oh, no, we all know the same techniques. You could go online and learn everything. That's probably true. But every professor, every coach, when it comes to strategy, they have their own way and their own strategy.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, the results I've gotten with my students on the mat, that strategy that I use with them, I hold it very dear. I'm not just going to give that away. You know, I don't care what the time, how the times change. I don't care what people say. Oh, you're old school or not. I'm not going to do that. If Greg came to me and he's giving me his hard-earned money and he's putting his heart on the match with me and with our team, I'm going to help him. And I hope that he doesn't take that to then go help the guy that he's got to go fight. And it just doesn't make any sense to me, you know?
Yeah, well, that's a great point, actually, because I say that all the time. Like, there's no secrets in jiu-jitsu and everything's on YouTube, and that's true. But you're right in the same token, where it's different strategies within those, you know, techniques of jiu-jitsu, which aren't a secret. So, like, back in the day, it was very like, oh, you know, you have to like seek out, you know, specific people to learn moves and things like that. And over the years, YouTube and everything else, and then so in a sense, you know, there's no secrets to learning moves is the point. But what's still unique about jiu-jitsu is every team and academy has their own unique ways of teaching and strategizing and what moves they're chaining together, you know, if they're following new moves or not. So that's a great point, because it's not just a simple statement of there's no secrets. And generally that's correct. But you're right, man. Everybody in their teams. But that's what makes jiu-jitsu so unique, and that's why it's constantly evolving, because different teams and different guys are going to develop their own strategies.
Well, and I think that's a good point too. I think, you know, the strategies for the individual also, like, you know, if you're fighting someone, you know, you have things that work for you and things that don't work for you, right? So your strategy is going to be slightly different, or even your coach helping you with your strategy is going to be slightly different than maybe even your teammate's strategy in a fight.
Yeah, and I think that's some of that is what's actually holding back jiu-jitsu, which, you know, you alluded to before. Like, what if your student, you know, goes to train at another school and pays a drop-in fee, but then now he's not paying you a tuition, let's say, and he actually switched schools. But the other academy doesn't know that. He thinks he's just dropping in. So you get these people that, you know, sometimes are, you know, trying to finagle the system where they don't have to pay a tuition anywhere, and they're just doing drop-ins. And that's not, you know, that could create, like you said, beeps and different, you know, disagreements and things like that, and bad blood. But the way I get around that is I say to my guys, I say, listen, you know, the way you avoid the politics and you can continue to cross-train and do it correctly is you always have your home school where you pay tuition. And that's where you want to pay tuition throughout your belt ranks, because that's how it should be. But throughout there, if you do drop-ins, you pay a mat fee or whatever that is. That's fine, but you have to still respect the home school that you want to represent, and you have to be clear with that instructor or professor or coach and say, listen, this is where I want my home school. This is where I want to get my belts and do my testing and compete and wear the flag under, you know. But while doing that, they can go out and train in other places as long as they have that home tuition where their home is, you know.
Absolutely right. I follow the same thing at my school, my students, and I use the example of like a bodybuilder, right? You have a bodybuilder and he's going to get his source of protein from a variety of places. He's got his main source of protein that's going to come from his meats. And then he has, you know, maybe vegetables, and then he's got his protein shakes, right? If I want to grow, right, and I want to build muscle, I got to really get in those lean meats, right? That protein from chicken or from beef, right? I cannot replace and expect to grow my protein with a shake. The protein from the shake is not going to help me grow. It's a supplement. So you got to have that main source of where you're getting your information from, where you're being, and we don't even use this word anymore. I know in Portuguese, I remember they use this word when they speak of someone receiving a black belt. Like here we say, oh, he got his black belt. Oh, he got his black belt. He got to black belt. In Portuguese, they say, ele foi formado pelo professor tal e tal. That means he was formed by Professor such and such. It's a big difference. He didn't just get it. The way we look at it, the way I look at it is my student is going to be formed. I'm taking him through those steps from A to Z to form him into a well-rounded black belt who's not just a black belt, but he's also now becomes, one, a representative and ambassador of the art of jiu-jitsu to everyone else. He represents our school. He represents me as well. He becomes a part of my legacy. So my legacy, I don't want to leave a stain on my legacy and just train whoever. I want to form these guys from one rank to the next rank, so this way they can represent first and foremost the art of jiu-jitsu, and then they're going to represent me and our lineage in a very professional manner and a very diligent and well-formed way. So I agree with you. I tell my guys are not limited to train anywhere. I have our schools open 7 days a week. We have morning classes evening classes, day classes, weekend classes, so they don't have to go anywhere. But if they want, they have the freedom to go and train. And I always teach them, like, don't try to go in there and get a free class, man. Pay your mat fee, you know, because everyone has to pay the bills, you know.
Yep.
Make sure you pay. Make sure you're respectful. Make sure you bring a clean white gi. You know, none of my girls would ever go to another academy with a dirty gi. They all have their traveling gi. It's put to the side already, and they represent in that sense, even with their hygiene, you know.
Right. So it's you know, I mean, I always equate it to, even if like you have people at work, your children, it's sort of like raising them to do the right thing, right? Especially, you know, you have a white belt coming in, it's sort of like you want to mentor them or raise them in some ways to be a good black belt, or to be, you know, because it's not just about training, it's about person, it's about, there's so many things that go into it.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Well, I mean, at least for us it is, right? With some others it's not. They don't really care about that character development aspect. And I'm not saying that everyone that comes to us needs, you know, character development, but you got some guys that are just like, they come from a background, you know, that, you know, for me, like as a father, for example, I'm a father of 4 daughters. Like, I'm just not really too crazy about guys, you know, denigrating women and things like that. You know, that's like, what do they do outside the mat and their personal life is none of my business. But when you come on my mats, you're going to treat the ladies with respect, man. You're not going to be talking in a foul manner or disrespect. You know, I'm talking about what you did at the weekend, whose panties you were putting money in. That's none of my business, and my mat is not the place for that. You know?
Yeah, that's one of the things about jiu-jitsu mats too, right? I mean, you know, we get so close to the people we train with, but at the same time, there's also, you know, you don't want to really have conversations on the mat about the things you said about, you know, politics, religion, things like that. Like, that's really not the place for, you know, for all that stuff. You develop a relationship with somebody, maybe it's off the mat, maybe you're hanging out, whatever. But that's also what's so special about jiu-jitsu is, you know, we get people on our mats that are prominent, you know, multimillionaire CEOs, and people on our mats that aren't. And that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. You're going to meet people who you don't know their background. You know what I mean? And they would never meet unless it was for jiu-jitsu. But at the same time, you got to have that fine line of, all right, listen, let's not talk about certain things, you know?
Right. Well, I think, you know, you gain a little bit of respect when people kick the shit out of each other. I'm just being honest, you know, like, you know, when you're fighting with each other, you gain a little bit of respect for people in very many ways. It's hard to, you know what I mean? It's hard to not.
Yeah.
And we also build a very special bond. And I think this has been spoken of before. I'm not sure who brought it up, but I think I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about, you know, if Greg and I are training, right, and we build a bond in that when you get me in a certain position where you can easily maim me for the rest of my life, I'm trusting that when I tap, you're going to respect that tap. And it's mutual, you know? And so I think that's another beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, where that real strong bond and brotherhood comes from, because I have to really trust you, man, that you're not going to break my arm or put me to sleep, you know? You trust me and I trust you when we have this very powerful tool in our hands, this very powerful weapon, and we're treating each other, though we're using this very powerful weapon in a very respectful manner, and we're taking care of each other, so to speak, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's true. And you said before, I mean, when, you know, you said your first students were your daughters, I mean, you know, and you wanted to start teaching, you know, like women, children, you know, that's different than the mentality that maybe that you started with, where, you know, like, once again, we talk about, you know, the back in the day of training, it was like a competition every class that we went to, you know, and that's really not really a good business model if you think about it. So like, I feel like not everybody that walks in the door is going to be this insane competitor and wants to just scrap it out every class. So I think nowadays, especially my academy too, like we have guys that still have trouble, you know, rolling at a particular pace because they're younger, they're athletic, they want to compete. So, but I think to have a good structure at the academy, you got to have like specific sessions where it's those competitors, those guys, you want to get after it. And that's awesome. We're going to enable you to do that. But, you know, if you're going to do that, you have that competitive mindset with, you know, a mom of 3.
Right. Or like a 15-year-old kid or whatever.
Yeah. So I think nowadays you got to kind of know that. You brought that up. That was a good point, you know?
Yeah, that's, you know, all business owners got to come to that point, or when if they are planning their business model, which direction they want to go to. And we have the best of both worlds. We have some schools that are just strictly competition type academies, you know, and then we have schools that or more like, self-defense based, more just fitness and mental health based type of things. I've tried to keep a balance. I've tried to keep a balance between the two, run a facility where children can train, women can train, elderly can train, just a regular business person, desk guy, but then also have my guys that want to compete and push themselves to those levels of high level jiu-jitsu, and it's nice. It's a nice thing to do. It's hard, but it's doable.
That's one of the reasons why, I also really wanted to, get involved and make Jiu-Jitsu Motivation like an active podcast like this is, because over the years and meeting so many people, I know a lot of people, but now running my academy for a few years, we got a, particular unique situation in the Hamptons where we get so many visitors that come into the academy. But on top of that, I have, I have old school instructors that teach classes for me, and it's amazing. And I want that, like you said, balance. I want guys in there that are going to teach those old school Gracie fundamentals and self-defense. And then I have, guys like Rich Byrne that bring in Eddie Cummings, and he's under Danaher, and we bring in all these leg entries, and we're doing no gi. And then myself, where I'm just keeping that balance, but that comes with challenges, way more than just a normal team and academy, because now I got different personalities and different instructors that believe their way is the way. But my thing is I want different people with different backgrounds in my place. And part of that is, like we said, making sure that people know that when they come in, I have it right on the wall. I have rolling guidelines. If you're wearing a gi, we're going to follow the IBJJF, what's legal during a match. No gi, all bets are off. It's sub only. You're allowed to heel hook. You can do. So I have it right in front of everybody. This is the rules. If you're wearing gi, no gi. If it's open mat, you can do either one. So, but I have to do that because I have so many drop-ins and visitors. Especially in the summer. But there's also the dynamic, like you said. You need that balance. I think everything is about balance, but you have to be clear. Just like I say, I tell everybody you can train wherever you want, as long as you have the respect for the home school. You know what I mean? You're paying your tuition there, and if a drop-in comes in, he's got to tell me, hey, I'm training here for a while. I'd like to, get my testing from you or stripes from you while I'm here. Like, I have to make sure they tell me that, because I don't know that, So there's a lot of so many dynamics to running an academy, man. It's insane. 100%.
Insane, challenging, and exciting as well.
I feel like we're just professional firefighters. We're just constantly putting out fires.
It's funny because I years ago I thought I wanted to open my own academy, and then eventually, like after helping run it, I was like, no.
Oh my God, dude.
I just want to train. I just want to, hang out, learn. Roll.
Some people are very judgmental about that too. I mean, and now we're going to move into the whole media aspect of it. I remember some students that used to train at my academy used to be like, "Oh, how come Greg? In the middle of class, he's on his phone?" And I'm like, dude, I'm a one-man show here. I have to post on Instagram. I'm posting different clips, taking pictures of the class. People, were giving me shit about, oh, he's on his phone when people are rolling. Like, dude, you notice the Instagram, you notice the social media, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have a academy manager. I don't have I do it all, you know what I mean? But I think people don't realize that. Even, how it is. You teach classes all day, and then you got the adult class at night. And sometimes you got to pick and choose what nights you're going to roll. And sometimes you got to pick and choose what nights you're going to be resting and things like that. But somebody who's just an athlete looks at it like, oh, how come he's not rolling? So I think a lot of people don't have any idea. They might have some, but until you're in there doing it, man, being an academy owner is a unique experience. So
it is very, very unique.
So I think that for sure. Well, go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say that you're right. You're absolutely right. Some people they have no idea. I just yesterday I had a little situation on the mat where I'm just like, we had like these tiny Cobras, right? They're like 3, 4, 5 years old, and we were doing King of the Mountain, and then they usually don't get too many chances because they're so small. And so I decided, I usually start with the heavyweights and then go down to the little people. I decided to start with the little people. And then I have a little girl named Emma. She's the smallest one in the class. Cute little girl. She doesn't really get a chance because she's got Ian and Christopher. They're really tough, and I have to be careful. I don't want her to get hurt. But yesterday she looked, lively. She looked like she had energy. So let me get her on the mat. And I let her go a few times, And then somebody yells out from the side, "Didn't she have a chance to go already?" I'm like, you want my black belt? You want to do my job?
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. Like, just sit down and shut up, man. Let me do my job. Like, You have no idea. And then I said, guys, let me explain to you. Little Emma hardly ever gets a chance to roll because she's so tiny, but by her age, she's in a bigger class, you know? I'm like, we have to take care of her, make sure she doesn't get hurt. But because of that, she doesn't get a chance to roll as much as you guys do. No one ever says anything when you guys are rolling 3 or 4 or 5 times. Now Emma gets a chance to go 2 or 3 times, and you guys are making a big deal out of it. Like, they just don't understand, you know, that we know what we're doing. Like when you said about the phone thing, right? I do the phone thing too, but there's a reason why I do the phone thing. Because I'm too particular. And I don't want the experience for the students to be unpleasant. So we do a phenomenal presentation with a lot of detail. And then just not to go and layer and layer and layer like Photoshop, a bunch of layers on top of layers, I kind of go off to the phone a little bit to give them a chance to process the information and work it out. Because if I don't go to the phone, I'll teach the move after I did all the presentation with all the details. And then I'm like, no, put your right hand here. No, the left hand. And it's like, whoa, hold on. It's too much, you know? So I purposely do the phone thing, but I've been in a situation as you where they're like, oh, why is he off on the phone like that? I'm like, you have no idea what I'm doing, man.
So what do you guys think with little kids, when you're teaching little kids, right? What about those parents who like coach from the sidelines and yell out from the sidelines, man? How do you guys feel about those?
Greg, first, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny because I know some instructors they don't like that at all, to the point where they actually close off the parents, and the parents they don't have access to even watch the class or be there to do that, to do the coaching. And I feel like at my academy, I have the benches right along the mats. I'm very clear with the parents, you know. Some of them, they get a little bit, you know, they try to coach, but then they realize, because actually, and I should post this, Brian, I don't know if you saw it, in the side of my academy, right where the parents sit, I have a laminated sign, and it says, parents, I got to look it up. It's a detailed thing, but it alludes to the fact that parents, just because, you know, you don't have to coach your kid and make them feel pressured in order to make them feel that they're like doing the job. You know what I mean? So it's in a paragraph that I put up there that it frames the framework when they look at it and they're like, oh, wow, I get it. You know, and of course, you're going to have the parents that are just overzealous and do that, you know. But I think once I talk to them and tell them, you know, I'm not saying they're not allowed and nobody's allowed to speak or like that. You know, maybe when the kid comes off, they can talk to him or something. But yeah, that's definitely, yeah, you get those parents that just start screaming, on board from the mound, go, you know.
Yeah. And you're like, wait, have you ever trained? You know,
yeah.
You see what I'm thinking? I'm like, wait a second. You know,
I give the parents when they sign up, the information packet that they receive initially when they sign up, I give them it's called sit-in etiquette. And it's just a list of some really basic things that they have to follow, you know. No phones, right? Like they can text, just no talking on the phone, ringers off, you know. And then I'll do, like, they get the list, but then I'll do like orientation with them, right? When we get a new parent, like, all right, guys, we're going to take a few minutes just to talk about a few things here before class gets started. We just want to lay down the groundwork for the rules. Think of the academy like a courtroom. If you go into the courtroom, you can't have your phone on, you can't have the ringer on, right? When the judge is and when the judge enters the room, everybody stands out of respect, right? You don't speak to the judge in any way. You got yes, your honor, no, your honor. I'm like, well, this is our courtroom. And I'm like, here are the rules. So you can't have your phone and be ringing here. I'm just talking on the phone when you feel like. You can text, that's fine. I understand that. But you're not going to come in here and start yelling off like you're in the street. You're going to sit in a very, you know, professional way and observe the class and let the instructor do what he has to do. And so for the most part, with that kind of education, we don't really have a problem with the parents, you know, yelling off the side and stuff like that, you know. They sit there. The only problem I have is the seating. They always fight for, like, you know, who's going to get the first row seats.
It's like musical chairs. They're like knocking each other off, right?
Is it just benches? Like, how does it work? Do you have like a stadium seating or benches or something?
Yeah, folding chairs. Oh, okay. I know, because we don't. I try to, at our school, maybe for the next location we'll make it bigger, but at this location it's pretty big. But I wanted to take up as much mat space as possible, so I left a very little area for the reception, and then we have these folding chairs that we just kind of open them up and then put them, you know, fold them back up and put them away. So usually when we pull them out, you see the parents by the door, like trying to get to that front seat. I'm like, man, these people about to fight just to get to that seat.
Let's be honest, mat space is what matters to the students, right? You know, because you want to be able to train. You want to have as many trains as you can, or whatever the case is. So you want mat space as much as possible.
No, definitely. Let's see here. Yeah, speaking of, actually, I'm going to try to bring this up now, but I have I got a picture of exactly what we were talking about. So I'll try to bring it up. But while we do that, I want to move into, you know, the media side, which I think is a big part of the sport now and the industry. And I don't think people realize it. You know, we've spoken to this on the podcast with Ricardo Amendolia of Flow Grappling and some others, you know, talking about, you know, like Chokelab in general, or other pages that started from scratch and just started with the passion of jiu-jitsu. How did you wind up starting that? What was the idea and the inspiration behind that?
So in 2015, they had the World Expo. And I think it was in California or Las Vegas. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. And I remember that they had super fights. It was about 5 or 6 super fights. They had a bracket. And then they had the portion of that event where you could go off and go to anybody's seminar, Bushesha, Rafael Mendez, Romulo Barral, right? They have these seminars on the side. So at that event of the super fights, my professor, Rob Zamora, had a super fight against the coach of the American top team, the BJJ coach for American top team, Marcos Zamata Pajumpinha. And they had legendary matches back in the day. So of all the super fights, I was waiting for the results. And I couldn't get the results anywhere. And there were very few people on the ground that were texting me and letting me know what was going on. And of all the super fights, he was the only one that finished his opponent, right? But no one reported on it. I saw Kid Peligro reported on Shaolin's match, which he won by a few points, and then Bruno Fazzato won, and there were a few people that won, but no one reported on Robson's match. Now, I don't know if you guys know, but Robson is like the wizard of wizards. He's like the legend. He's the legend's legend. I went one time, was hanging out with Guilherme Mendes. He went to New York City, took him to go see Times Square. And he was like, man, I've been studying him for years. I still study his jiu-jitsu. And you know, we had that in common. And, you know, Guilherme's like a technical wizard. And 2, he has like a phenomenal in terms of accolades, right? ADCC runner-up, multiple-time world champion, IBJJF Hall of Famer. And I was like, man, you gotta be kidding me. They didn't report on this, you know? So I wasn't into Instagram at all. My wife was trying to put me up on it. I didn't like it. I thought it was SEO for dummies when I saw like the hashtags and stuff like that. And I found someone that did actually do the report on the match that Robson had. I don't remember his name, and I should know this because he deserves the credit for that. He did an interview with Robson, asked him about the match, and then he had little clips of the match that he put up as B-roll. I took it down, chopped it up, and I was like, all right, I want to put this out. But where am I going to put it out? I said, damn, I got to go to Instagram. I had to shut the countdown, and I had to open it back up. When I posted the video, that was my first experience with a video going viral. Like all our teammates were posting it everywhere. And then I thought, at first, I must admit, it was from bad sentiment, but I changed my mind ever since. And at first I was upset. I was like, why didn't Gracie Magazine report on it? Why didn't the Tommy report on it? You know, what's wrong with these guys? If it's not Roger Gracie, then you're just not going to get any exposure, right? And then I changed my mind afterwards. And I was like, well, they can't report on everything, right? Mm-hmm. You know, so I was like, why don't we just jump in there and try to do that? So this is my sentiment. I thought to myself, how many coaches out there are, for example, like Melky Galvan, right? He's forming great champions. He's forming great champions. His team just, a bunch of kids just won life featherweight, you know, a bunch of titles in the world, right? They're getting ready for ADCC now. And they've been winning everything this year. That kid Fabiano, right? Oh, Fabricio Andre. He's winning everything. This whole year he won everything. No one knows about Melky Galvan. No one's doing reports on this guy. But there are many others like him. Or maybe athletes who are out there but just haven't gotten that break yet, right? Last week we did a seminar with this young man he teaches at Gregor Gracie's, Arthur Bandera. Phenomenal jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu going forward the whole time, looking for the finish, a risk taker. Nobody knows who he is. If he's not Gracie, he's not going to come out on the cover of Gracie Magazine. You know, if he's not some heavy hitter from Alliance, then he's not going to get covered by Flow Grappling. So I was like, let's build a page that has the prestige of those type of social media accounts, right? Or social media sources. But instead of focusing only on the stars, we give a little bit of room for these other people, man. You know, they're out there contributing to the growth of the art, out there forming champions, but are probably never, ever going to get featured on the cover of Gracie Magazine or in a Flow Grappling episode. So that was my intention behind Chokelab. So obviously I had to kind of use the stars a little bit to attract the people. But as you notice, I do a lot of reposts, man, of other people. You know, let them get a chance, you know, to because just think about it. If somebody goes on Instagram and posts a picture of their recent promotion, why did they post it on Instagram? Because they want everybody to see it. I look around and I see the picture got 5 likes and 2 or 3 comments. I'm like, you know what? Let me put that in my stories real quick, man. Maybe they might get 5 or 10 followers, or maybe get a bunch of likes and be like, check their phone after a while, like, damn, where the hell did all these likes come from? You know, it's a great feeling, man. It's a great feeling, you know. And so that was the sentiment behind Choke. Now, obviously, over the years, it's growing, right? It's like, first we just started doing that. It was like something for the community, which we're still doing. But then, you know, somebody had said to me, man, why don't you make like Chokelab events, man? It'd be great to do that, or sponsor events. I was like, well, I can't really sponsor events because that's tough, right? One, let's say, for example, Greg had an event that happens and he's like, oh, you know, Chokelab, why don't you come by and set up a table? I can't do that all the time. Like, I'm a married man, father, business owner. I don't have the freedom to be driving. And my wife probably killed me for that too. So I was like, if I can't go places, why don't we just have the people in the event come to me? So we created a beautiful AOJ style white mat where twice a year we have a very high profile competitor athlete come in and share like the recent trends in terms of jiu-jitsu, you know? And so far we're like since 2016, I think it's like we're going on to our 4th year now, where these events have been very, very successful, helpful, because we're spreading really good information for all the people that attend. And then recently, a lot of people have been asking about hats and t-shirts and things like that. So we finally got into that. I wanted to do some research first and not just throw anything out there, do a lot of testing and trial with gear, hoodies and things like that, make sure that I get feedback from my students on little details that we can add to it. So this way, when they buy a Chokelab product, it's like you're buying Donna Karan, you know, like very, very fine, very good stuff, you know, not just anything thrown out there, you know. These things take time, you know. They take time and a lot of
that's the thing is you're talking about apparel companies and gi companies. Everybody and their mother now has an apparel company, and they're selling rash guards and gis, and you know it's getting pretty crazy. So to stand out is like
gets rough.
You gotta have a quality product, you know.
Right. Yeah. Recently, this week we had we put out some gis and some hoodies, and they just sold out. Everything sold out, like in a matter of days. And then when we got the feedback, everyone was really raving about it, you know. Recently, just this week, shipped out a few international orders for people overseas, New Zealand and London, and got reviews from them like, wow, this stuff is really, really amazing, you know. But it was a lot of hours of doing research and testing products before I put it out. I wanted to make sure that when we put it out, that people will notice the difference, and also that it goes along with the Chokelab brand, right? Because when people see Chokelab, we don't post garbage on there. I don't post street fights. I did once, which was the idea was to show how dangerous it is for jiu-jitsu to fall into the wrong hands. It wasn't to just be posting. I don't really care about a lot of likes and things like that. I want to put good content out, information that's helpful, information that's inspirational. And also to create dialogue. Sometimes people post techniques that are they're not the best techniques, right? But I'll put thoughts. Let's see what the community has to say. Give people a chance we got to try to preserve that idea of free speech, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I try to create an open forum concept in the comment section where people are free to say what they want to say, be it negative or positive, because the climate right now on the social media is censorship. And we're you know, we're in a battle right now for that idea of free speech, you know.
Well, that's what jiu-jitsu, that's what, to me at least, is what's rooted in jiu-jitsu, is the freedom and sharing of information and ideas. That's how jiu-jitsu got to where it is today. How do you think people were going to share techniques because they had an opinion on it? Hey, try it during rolling. Hey, does it work? Are you winning with it? You know, that's a freedom of speech, if you ask me, you know. So like,
it's freedom of ideas.
We got to preserve that. And I feel like, you know, you yourselves, Jiu-Jitsu Motivation, you know, we're trying to keep that going. Post something. It may be controversial. Post something that looks like it's not going to work. People are going to say it and call it out. You know what I mean? Like that's what it's supposed to be. A rising tide is going to raise, you know, all the ships. You know, that's why I feel like academy practices, techniques, teaching, business practices, the ones that work and have a following are going to stay, and the ones that don't are going to disappear. People are going to vote with their dollars. you know?
Yes.
I truly feel that.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with having opposite opinions, right? It's just being respectful of the other opinion. That's all it is. And
actually, I found I found what I have hanging in my academy. I don't know, Brian, if you want to bring that shared screen image. Yeah. So this is what I have. I want you to check this out. What do you think of this? So I have, please refrain from coaching your child while class is running. Your child's success or lack of success in sports does not indicate what kind of parent you are. But having an athlete that is coachable, respectful, a great teammate, mentally tough, resilient, and tries their best is a reflection of your parenting. So,
very nice.
It's a little deep, but, I have that, right? And as all the parents come in, they see that, and they kind of like soak it in, and then now the kids are training, and they kind of have that in the back of their head. I think to be, a lot of people are impressed with the kids' class because I don't have that problem, really. And all the parents are literally a foot off of the mat watching the class. So I think I wanted to bring that up because I know we're pretty in line and in agreement with that, but I have that hanging right in the academy. So absolutely.
I think that's so helpful, and very helpful especially to the children in the class,
Yeah. So then back on to we just said everybody and their mother has a clothing, apparel, gi company now. And just like everybody and their mother now has a Patreon and a YouTube channel. So at the same time as we see this great technology being used in jiu-jitsu, is it somewhat getting saturated to where everybody's just throwing free content out there? It's like people don't know what they're looking at. But I think it comes back to the, media companies, yourself, us, have now that, responsibility or just to keep, everything going in that sense. But what do you think? Is it getting saturated? Is it a good thing, a bad thing?
I mean, like they say, competition is good, right? Competition is good. Just think about like a brand like maybe when like Porsche came out, right? They've been on the top forever. And how many brands have come out since Porsche came out? But still people, they still know Porsche is a Porsche,
Right.
So many brands have come out, Hyundai, Honda, you name it. But Porsche is still standing there, man. Maybe not everyone buys it because they can't afford it, but they still stand. And
I think it's anything to do with brand, right? If your brand has some meaning behind it and people connect with that meaning, whatever it is, like it's your school or whatever, it's a brand. Your personality, it's a brand, right? And if people connect with that, they're going to stay connected with that as long as you have that relationship with them. I think it's super important to have the relationship with the people that are connecting with your brand or your media or whatever, or your rash guards or your gi company or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. You got to connect with that user and keep that connection.
Yes, and remain true to what your goal was, right? Not just for, right now it's changing. I noticed the way videos are posted or what is posted, and obviously I could probably go into posting videos with more chicks, right? I've never done that from the beginning. But maybe let's say if as a business owner, you get to a point where you're like, oh man, I'm not getting the same likes or the same comments. Oh, I need to do something else to get it. And then go into a different, I'm not being true to Chokelab if I start posting videos of chicks rolling around, Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I saw this last few days, very beautiful girl that has an Instagram account, Guy Ebuorno, right? She posts a lot of great content. I've never seen anybody repost her videos when she's posing for clothing, but she posted a video recently of her training in these really tight spandex, spats, and all of a sudden I see all the pages sharing. I'm like, you see what I'm saying? Imagine if Chokelab did something like that. We have to remain true to what we're doing. I'm not gonna try to change what I'm doing so that I can get more likes or more followers. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, you got.
That's another very important part.
Yeah, you gotta stick to your mission or your message, right?
How about so now, just with the sport in general, you see a big split. For years you can get away with training all the gi, just do a little no gi, but now it seems like both ends with the gi. There's all this lapel guard and all this stuff that's very deep, and then in the no gi, there's all these leg entanglements, leg entries because heel hooks are legal, where in the gi they're not, and it seems like a big split in the sports. A lot of people consider it very different. What do you think about that? Where do you think the sport's going with the events and the rule sets and all that?
So I don't see it. So remember back in the days, Greg, when what's the kid's name? Ryan Hall was doing 50-50 and submitting everybody with heel hooks. People forget about that. This is not new. This whole leg entanglement is not. I'm not saying that they haven't come up with new things, but the idea of leg entanglements and submitting people with is not new.
Yeah.
And so there was a time when Ryan Hall was doing it, and there were a bunch of people who followed him as well. And then it kind of like what happened, which is the natural thing that happens in jiu-jitsu. We're reverse engineers. We figure it out, and then we deconstruct it. And then after that, it doesn't work anymore. Just like when you look at the first editions of the ADCC, right? When they had all the wrestlers come in, all the jiu-jitsu guys were taken down. Then you look at 2001 and 2003, what happened? Joey Gilbert was getting taken down, right? And he was like one of the top wrestlers in the beginning. Jiu-jitsu starts to adapt and then deconstruct, and then they come back strong on top. So it's the same thing.
Evolution.
What happened? It's the evolution. We'll see now with the kind of sort of like what happened with betting ball, right? For me, the leg entanglements, just as an example, it's kind of sort of like betting ball with the butt flopping and then they're playing here. And then what happens eventually? Back in the day, people used to get caught with betting ball. Like some people still get caught, but those are people who are not training or educating themselves. But for the most part, if you do betting ball now, you just can't pull it off like you used to. Because everyone knows the counter now. So eventually what's going to happen with the leg entanglements is that, one, I find it a little bit boring because it's happening the same thing. They're just sitting there and it's taking forever for someone to get caught.
Double pulls and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. And since it's such a hot thing now to just get the finish, everyone's jumping in head first. Like, oh, I want to be the next, Gordon Ryan or the next, Nicky Ryan or Wolverine. That time is past already, They don't realize it, but that's the bad part that I see of it. Like how everyone's just like, just be yourself, man. Just do what you do.
Yeah,
I
agree.
I'm not saying not to practice heel hooks. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like, be you, man. Don't try to be someone else, And unfortunately, that part of it is where it messes it up. I remember in 2004 when I went to the Worlds, I was standing there looking at all the rings, about 16 rings. And when they started, you see everybody in the warm-up. I'm very good, like encyclopedic with the names. I look in the bullpen, I'm like, damn, there goes Marcelo Garcia, he's on deck. There goes Bibiano Fernandez, he's on deck. There goes Feston Pacho, he's on deck. Oh my goodness. And when they let those bulls out of the cage, you didn't know where to look. You didn't know to look in ring number 1 or 16 because there was so much going on. And everyone at that time, they had their own unique style. If you watched Feston Pacho, you knew that he was going to catch somebody with a Maljivaca. If you're watching Bibi Fernandez, who they call the Flash, you didn't know if there was a flying arm lock or triangle coming out of somewhere. When you watch Marcelo Garcia, you knew he was going to get into his patent arm drag to the X guard. Now, when you look at it, it's like, I know exactly what's going to happen, bro. And poof, flop right to the butt for the most part, majority of it. The same thing is happening in no-gi. In no-gi, the same thing is happening where it's like, and then boop, sit right down and then playing with the feet. So there's a good and a bad to it. The bad is that it's boring. It's not good to watch. It's really bad for the spectators. If we want to promulgate the art like that, it's boring. I don't know anybody that. I recently had an experience with my strength and conditioning coach, Coach Harry. I went to compete in Masters Worlds after 9 years not competing. I said, you know what? I need something to really light a fire under me. If I register for the Masters Worlds, that will definitely get me off the seat of my pants. I jumped in. I had super exciting matches. You know how we used to do, Greg. We would put on a show, man, right? Flying arm locks, flying triangles, guard passes, you name it. And that's one thing that I loved about Greg. He was like a showman. He went out there and put it on the line. And my coach said he was watching on Flow Grappling at Parisi's. And he told me, when I got back, he said, Joseph, we were losing our minds. He was like, I was there watching. I was cheering for you. He goes, everyone in my staff was here cheering for you. And then he's like, it was so amazing. He goes, even though we don't really know much about jiu-jitsu, we knew that what you were doing was exciting. And I said to him, I'm glad your first experience watching jiu-jitsu was watching me and not watching these butt floppers, because you would have been like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, jiu-jitsu's getting to that point where even sometimes I'd rather watch like collegiate wrestling. You know, like I think, but that's to me, that's why I love having this conversation, because part of jiu-jitsu is the evolution. And like you said, if all the schools trained with the evolution, like, you know, I think there's way more schools than people think that they just do what they know and don't even get out to. I remember, you know, Berimbolo and 50-50 was looked at as, oh, that's new school, don't do that, you know, and I left because that's part of the evolution. And I think people there's a lot of schools that don't even get into the heel hook game. So like you said before, everybody's going to learn what's new and then shoot it down, and then something else is going to evolve. But if you're not even learning that stuff, then you're even way behind than you think.
Yes.
You know, so like, how are we going to progress the sport? So now everybody's doing the butt scoot thing and entanglements and berimbolo and leg locks and stuff. But we have to get to that next point where people are all learning these things, so that people are defending these things, so we can get to the next step. Because as it stands right now, this is not a good spectator sport, man.
No, it's not at all. And that's why my perspective when I teach, I teach the guys, we're trying to beat that stuff. Like, all right, we're learning it, right? I'm learning the leg entanglements, but it's not because I'm gonna go out there and try to put someone in a heel hook. I'm just gonna go out, if I'm out there and somebody's trying to attack me with these positions, I'm gonna completely deconstruct. He's not even gonna have a chance to get in the position, you know? And then I'm gonna continue on my path playing my game. I'm not gonna play their game. I'm not gonna go with the trends and stuff like that. I'm gonna be Joseph. Greg's gonna be Greg, you know, like
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. Like, people don't focus on developing their own games, right? They, you know, because here's the thing, and your game could be completely different than your instructor's game, you know.
Yes.
But you gotta figure out what your game is and your style of jiu-jitsu. I think that's part of the journey. I really do. You know.
Yeah, like you're seeing now, like the you know, the rise of the single events where, you know, the single matches and there's walkout. I mean, you know, that never happened back in the day. There was only really IBJJF and your small local tournaments, and then all of a sudden you saw, you know, now there's Flow Grappling, who's number one. I think really kicked it off with EBI, fight to win. That style of event, you know, and which is particularly sub only. But now there's events that doing IBJJF and sub only. It's just really amazing to see and to kind of predict what's going to happen now in the future. You know, I think you'll always have your IBJJF. You'll always have those level tournaments. Now, will IBJJF still be looked at as to how people should be promoting students? Maybe not. Or, you know, that you have to have an IBJJF membership? Maybe not. But you'll always have those style of IBJJF rule tournaments, I think. And your local tournaments, you'll always have your local tournaments. There'll be IBJJF tournaments. There'll be sub-only no-gi tournaments. Right. And then you'll have your pro events, which we kind of see with the Flow Grappling. Now the question is, where do those pro events go? You know, do they start to incorporate more IBJJF because it's mainly sub-only? You know, it's very interesting how all this is going down.
Yeah, the way I was when we were competing is it didn't matter what the rule set was. We did it all. Gi, no gi, IBJJF, submission only. We've done tons of those. So I tell my students, don't get into this debate about what you should or what you shouldn't do. If you are a grappler and you're true to grappling, do it all. Prepare yourself for everything. Yeah. Right? Prepare yourself for everything.
It's all grappling.
Do no gi. Yeah. Yes, it's grappling. You shouldn't be limited. I think it's a disservice to the athlete or the student if a professor doesn't instill this in them, that they should just what is the whole point of grappling? What is our objective when we're grappling in jiu-jitsu? It's to go for the finish. I don't care how I got to get the finish, brother. If it has to be from the standing position on the ground, I'm going to go for the finish. It has to be gi or no gi, I'm going for the finish. If we focus on that, it doesn't matter. Prepare yourself for everything. And personally, I had a lot of success. Gi, no gi, submission only, I did it all. I had a lot of success. I never complained, and I never teach my students like, oh, no gi's bad, or leg locks are bad. Right. I'm like, or gi, I don't get into this debate about it. I'm like, guys, we do everything at the academy. You know,
you mentioned Marcelo. You mentioned Marcelo. He's got that game, which I love. It's perfect for gi and no gi. It's because it's all grappling.
Yes. You know? You're absolutely right about that. And he also has a game that is very easy for everyone to do. Like if you think about it, like butterfly guard, you don't really have to be flexible to do that. But if you're talking about like spider guard, you might have to have a little flexibility. So his game is like a really great model game for everyone, whether you're small, tall, short, big. You know, that game is
not really attribute centric.
Yes, that's a better term. Attribute centric. I like that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So no, I mean, once again, I mean, we can go through all these topics. What else you think, Brian? I had like a bunch on my mind. I got off. So
No, I think you need to tell everyone where they could find more about you, man.
Yeah, so you got Zay Cobra is
Right.
one spot, right, on Instagram, and then Chokelab separately is that separate media project of yours, right? So where else is that those two pages pretty much?
Pretty much, yeah. So it's tough to manage those. So to answer Brian's question, personally, I have my Zay Cobra account, and that's more related around me and my business. Like that's where I get seminars from. That I post little videos, I get private lessons, things like that. I don't sell any gear or anything like that. But Zay_Cobra is where I'm posting, things that I share at the school. Sometimes I do Q&A at the academy, and I'll record a little portion of the Q&A and just share that. It's not the normal stuff that people are talking about, because I always try to go in the opposite direction. But it is good content, we have some followers and some friends there that are supporting that. And then the big account where I'm really trying to reach more people and just kind of sort of break that barrier of team A, team B type of thing is via Chokelab. Right there, it's not Zay Cobra, it's not Robson Mora, it's not team A, team B, it's team Jiu Jitsu, And there we're posting repost. Like I said, it's more about the community. I do like to do those cool little what we call them, the analyzation clips, where we do the cool little breakdown with the HUD and stuff like that. And that's cool. I do it all the time, just not to play it out. But we're really there more for the community, that's more for everyone. Some people might not like Zay Cobra, but everyone likes Chokelab.
That's awesome, man. But you said it perfect. It should be all about the community, jiu-jitsu and grappling, because it's all under the umbrella of grappling. I love that old video of Helio doing a heel hook, because back then it didn't matter. It was about the finish. It was about what works. You know what I mean? And I think at some point jiu-jitsu got to be less about what works and more about all these different little splits, just heel hooks, gi, no gi, old school, only the basics, only new school. Like, let's get back to, it's all grappling, and it's all about the finish. It's all about what works in a real situation.
And that leads me back to what we were saying about forming the student. My goal is to form them and teach them correctly, because they're the ones that are going to carry this on after me. And so it's the professor's job. It really comes from the instructors. They have to be diligent in that. You and I, we're talking about it, right? Some instructors don't know this. They weren't raised like that. You come from a great background as well, Mansoor. He's like a living legend. That guy, historic. Like Kyoto. Like a lot of people don't even. I was breaking that down to somebody the other day. They're like, I didn't know what that meant. Kyoto. I said, yeah, that's the origin of Jiu Jitsu.
A lot of people don't really know. A lot of people don't really know.
People don't know that.
I mean, that's Master Mansoor originally, taught under Helio. And that's directly from.
He went to Kyoto, Japan. He wanted to know what was the source and the origin.
People don't know that really either. It's the language translation, Kyoto, but in Portuguese, Kioto. So he was kind of given.
Yeah, well, there's no Y in Portuguese, right?
Exactly.
So you go with the I, right? So
yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that either. Okay, that makes sense.
So it comes down to us, brother, man. It comes down to the instructors, coaches, and professors to form them in the right way and teach them what you're saying. Don't worry about gi or no gi. Do it all. Don't worry about this. Go for the finish. Also, like we mentioned before, be your own person. Does that mean that you can't learn everything? No, learn everything. Learn betting bolo, learn the heel hooks, learn the entanglements, learn your judo, learn your wrestling. But at the end of the day, you are you. You're not Nicky Ryan. You're not Gordon Ryan. Be you. Find a way to play your game. And if we do that, then we won't have these clones. Right? You go to bed and you look like this, 16 rings, and what do you see? The same thing everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, how many times do you walk into class and everyone's like, "Oh, I want to be Gordon Ryan"? I'm like, dude, that ship sailed, years ago for you.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So awesome, guys.
Interesting stuff.
Give a follow. Zay Cobra and Chokelab. They got some amazing video content. I mean, some of the best video content in the sport. I mean, just the quality of the video content. It's no wonder I see him at local tournaments with this insane camera setup. I mean, he's at a local tournament in a high school gym. And he's got his camera that could be
$10,000 worth
doing
of
production
camera
for Hollywood.
That's so funny, man.
So guys, give him a follow, Chokelab. Stay in touch, and let's get this. Let's keep the sport going. Let's remind everybody of it's all grappling. Be true to yourself. Be your own unique athlete. It's all about your individual journey. Make sure that that's the priority. And yeah, so I really appreciate you coming on again. Like I said, we go way back, man, and really wanted to catch up with you.
Thank you both gentlemen so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Great podcast, a lot of great questions. That was really awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing or sharing it rather, because I was part of it with my students. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Stick around. We'll chat afterwards. Guys, talk to you soon. Thanks.